going on, Los Angeles? Welcome to the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network, live on the Mightier 1090 ESPN Radio. Excited to be with you on a beautiful Thursday, Friday, Saturday, whenever you're listening. And we appreciate you making us a part of your day. I'm your co-host, Ryan Dyrud, joined by the man himself, Ryan Skinny T. Anderson, here for a fun Rams Cardinals preview. But first, as always, my friend, how are you doing on this beautiful day?
I'm doing pretty good. My Minnesota Twins did get officially bounced from the playoffs yesterday. So a little bummed about that, but as they say, there's always next year. How you doing, man?
There's always next year. Yeah. Well, a lot of Los Angeles fans are obviously disappointed as well because the Dodgers swept in their series after another 100-win season. But we won't get into that. But I'm good. Life is good. Excited. I'm heading out to South Bend tomorrow for the SC Notre Dame game. So I'm excited to get that experience and obviously get to cover our Trojans and whatnot. So, but other than that, just business as usual, grinding out content, giving it for the people, hopefully. So we thank you all for hanging out. Make sure to like and subscribe to the Rams LAFB YouTube channel. Or if you're listening on podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, all those good stuff, hit that subscribe as well. And as always, make sure to go to LAFBnetwork.com to check out all of our Rams content. We got Rams podcast, obviously the Rams Skinny, and then obviously we have editorial and all of our social handles. You can either go LAFB Network or Rams_LAFB for Rams only social content. All right. So Sunday, Skinny, we got the 2-3 Rams facing off against the 1-4 Cardinals, a scrappy 1-4. Obviously the record doesn't look good, but I think they've looked better overall as a team than expected. Very similar to this Rams team, kind of the better than expected mantra, as rookie head coach Jonathan Gannon has seemingly got these Cardinals at least playing hard and competitive, even with really no quarterback and now James Conner going on IR and defensive changes and whatnot in one off season. So it won't be a pushover game. That being said, Sean McVay is 11-2 against this Cardinals organization since he took over head coach. So as we always kind of start these previews, just kind of what's your overall thought process before we dig deeper into some key matchups?
Well, this is one of those matchups that it seems like the Rams offense should be able to take advantage of this team. But we've said that going into every game that they were going to score 30 points. And they just were coming off the back of a 14-point performance against the Eagles. Obviously, the Eagles are a different caliber of team than the Cardinals, but no second-half points. We talked all about that in our recap of the game. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, is they should be able to dominate at least on that side of the ball. So that's kind of my big picture take. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what we talked about in the recap episode, we can kind of obviously carry over to here and see how this team can bounce back. And it's going to start, as always, I'm going to bring it up, Skinny. It's going to start with the running game. The Cardinals are in the bottom tier of run defense, giving up 124 yards per game. So I know they want to sling it. I know we got Cooper Kupp back and Puka Nacua looks great, and we'll get into those key matchups. But for me, the overarching, if we're just talking big picture, run the ball 30 times, get Kyren Williams going, get Ronnie Rivers involved as a nice change of pace back. If you get over 125 yards in this game, the Rams are going to be looking at a W. So for me, it's simple. Just run the damn ball.
Yeah. You can't say it more succinctly than that. And Kyren Williams has been really good. And, it's one of those. I was actually on Talking Sporty over there with our Brittany Betts, our fantastic host of that show. And we were talking all about it. And, it's there's no reason why they shouldn't do it, but it is just one of those confusing things. And it seems to be a second half issue as well. But I do think I think the Rams are going to get out in front early on in this game, and hopefully that will be enough. But the Cardinals have been scrappy. They beat the Dallas Cowboys. Nobody saw that coming. They themselves have scored some points. Against the Giants, they put up 28. just 20 last week. So yeah, I don't feel great going into this game just because of the chance that another fourth quarter or second half, fourth quarter kind of falling apart or anything like that. I don't know. What do you think? Blowout? Are you thinking a close game?
It's hard because this is one of those teams that the Rams and McVay have just had their number. Obviously, McVay being 11-2 against them, and you see, who's lining up at quarterback. No disrespect to Josh Dobbs, but at least back when Kyler Murray was there was the art of deception of like, okay, which Kyler Murray are we going to get? Like, he obviously has a lot of talent and can take games over when healthy. But I don't think we'll see anything crazy from Josh Dobbs, who, in last week's game threw, 2 interceptions, only 166 yards on 50%, or less than 50% completion percentage, like 48% completion percentage. So,
Wow.
and again, no James Conner as he got injured in that game last week and now on IR. So there's really no existential threat. Everyone, if you forgot, DeAndre Hopkins isn't there either anymore, traded, and he's now with the Tennessee Titans. So, there's really we talked last week about, or a few days ago, how the Eagles felt like the one team that we've seen. I mean, not the one, but obviously the way the game played out where it was just a talent discrepancy. Like you just look at what the Eagles roster have, and the Rams were just overmatched in certain areas. It shouldn't be the case this week against the Arizona Cardinals. Like the Cardinals, I think, are playing above their pay grade, even though they only have one win. They've really battled and been in every game. And now going against the Rams team, the Rams, I think, have more talent at just about every position, especially on offense. When you look at who they have at quarterback, the receiving core, even the offensive line, and then obviously the running backs, as we've mentioned. And then defensively, there's no one on the Arizona offense where, as I just kind of talked about extensively, that scares me that I'm worried about this defense. You look at last week, it's like, all right, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, how does Akhello Witherspoon and company slow them down? When you look at their running game, like are the front seven going to really be, when you look at Jalen Hurts and just his physical ability, like how are they going to contain him and which stunts are they going to do? There's no one on Arizona where I am worried by that. Now, that's not to say they might not move the football. They might throw some nice wrinkles in there and surprise stuff. We met the Arizona, QB coach down at the combine, right? So they'll have some fun wrinkles in there, I'm sure, but there's just not the talent where I'm worried. So long answer to your question. I'm not willing to say this is going to be a blowout, but I think the Rams should definitely handle this game. Like fans should be able to breathe easy during this game and not, go through cardiac arrest, quarter after quarter, I think.
Yeah, and this is the kind of team that they're going to do that against. Not only are they not great against the run, the Cardinals, that is to say, but they're also they have one of the lowest pressure rates in the league as well. And they don't blitz either, which is something I wrote about in an article that the Rams kind of have to figure out how to counteract an effective blitzing team. Well, the Cardinals don't blitz. They blitz also at the lowest rate in the league, I think. This is the kind of game that Matthew Stafford should just take a hold of, and they should just not look back. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. We'll put these Cardinals kind of in their place of being back in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes, Drake May sweepstakes, if you want that. And then it's another home game, so I think the home crowd will get to see a win. I think that would be the first W this year in SoFi for the Rams, right?
I think you're right. Yeah, because they won in Seattle and
in Indianapolis.
In Indianapolis, yeah. So I saw someone tweet. I can't remember who. So I apologize if you're out there listening that I'm not crediting you, but saw someone saying how this is when the Cardinals come to town, it's truly one of the few great home games for this Rams team or just an LA team, because the Cardinals don't really have a huge fan base. They don't travel, even though it's not that far. You'll definitely see some Cardinals fans out there, but it's finally like a true home games for these Rams fans, and it's more affordable. I mean, you can just look at ticket prices, and trying to go to that Eagles game, you're looking at $350 plus for a ticket on the third party market. You can go to this Cardinals game for under $70, and so you can bring the family out and so it's fun when the Cardinals come to town, and we can finally kind of really be a true home game and get loud and proud in SoFi, and the offense doesn't have to be on a kill count or whatever. So yeah, I think this is a good matchup and a good chance for this Rams team to get back to what they're doing, and a good opportunity for Sean McVay to kind of, as we've talked about a lot, Skinny, where has kind of a bad game and then he always bounces back with a good one. So I think this is going to come at the discretion, I guess, of the Cardinals, that they're going to get, a good Sean McVay game, if you will.
Yeah, it makes me curious. We'll be our second game with Cooper Kupp back. I'm kind of curious as to what exactly this offense is going to look like and continue to evolve after one game. We'll see it in the second game. Obviously we want to see more running. That's definitely on top of the docket. And just, I want to see much more of that kind of innovative side of McVay. What is he going to do with two great receivers out there? And then you got Tutu Atwell as well. Van Jefferson, I don't know if we had a chance to talk about him yet, but he was set packing for a couple of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And I think this is a perfect game that we'll be able to see some interesting things from McVay, kind of in that bounce back, and he gets to try out maybe a few things he was a little hesitant to roll out against the Eagles.
Yeah, and I think that's a good starting point. And let's look at this offense now, and we'll go into singular key matchups in the show. But looking just at this matchup more succinctly or more in depth, I guess, Skinny, when you look at this offense and wanting to get creative and back to kind of doing some of those jet motions, jet sweeps. We saw, Tutu Atwell have that great touchdown quotes run against the Bengals that was called back still for no explanation that we know of. What do you want to see directly? If we're here, we got the headset on, we're putting on we got the clipboard, we put on the headset, we're calling a Rams game. Break it down for me, what you're doing, your game plan is against this or against this Cardinals defense that, again, ranks bottom, I believe, 6 in passing and bottom 10 in rush defense. So the Rams should have their way. So what's your game plan that you're putting out there?
Yeah, I'm getting the ball to Tutu Atwell a lot in this game. I want to stretch the field. That's what I want to see. I want to see some of those explosive passes that really defined this team in 2021 that we haven't yet seen without the full slate of wide receivers and pass catchers out there. And I would also like to see, how dynamic exactly can Puka Nacua be, again, stretching the field. We've seen him a lot going through the middle, picking up tough yards in that area. He didn't have a lot of yards after the catch. So I'd like to see him kind of getting a bit more space and just using Cooper and Nacua off of each other. Just let's see what, he's been compared a lot to Robert Woods, Puka Nacua, that is. So, let's see what the extent of that is. So I would also love to see Kyren Williams getting used out of the backfield again, catching the ball. He kind of botched a couple of catch attempts, but I'd love to see that happen, that being folded into the Rams offense, because we haven't seen that since Gurley's been gone. So those are a couple things that I'd like to see, and get Kyren some confidence, toss him the ball, and just see what he does with those powerful moves that he makes.
Love it. Yeah. I'll start with the offensive line. And like we talked about, I think they played admirably last week. Larry Jackson coming back from injury and Dotson taking that guard spot with Noteboom out. And, I thought they played fairly well against, one of the best defensive fronts in football. But they still gave up 21 pressures, which again I'm not shying away from how good the Eagles are, but this Arizona team, I believe, only finished with 14 pressures last week in their loss to the Bengals. So this is another, we talk about a get right game for McVay and the play calling, but this is a good get right game for this offensive line to kind of really get succinct again. Hopefully they're healthy. I know Noteboom's on the injury chart again. Did not practice as of Thursday of this recording. But I think moving forward, like, I'm fine with this unit being Jackson, Avila, Shelton, Dotson, and then obviously Rob Havenstein. I know, there's still some questions too on Shelton and if he's going to be fully healthy or if we're going to see Brian Allen at center. But overall, I just want to see this offensive line get back to kind of what we saw those first couple weeks when really shocked everyone with how not just well they were playing, but with how kind of mean and nasty they were. I mean, went toe to toe with the Niners and really played bully ball with them a little bit. So get back to being those just maulers in the trenches, I think, against this Cardinals team that doesn't have a great pass rush. And they should be able to move guys for running. So love to see that. I think that starts with the run game. I won't bore people and talk about it too much. Obviously, we know we want to get 30 carries, but I would love to see them start it from the jump. So if we're talking game plan, if we're talking game scripts, last week, I believe I may be a little off by number, but I believe it was almost 5 straight passes before they ran the football on that first drive. Now that was working for them. Then obviously with Cooper Kupp back in his first game, you want to get him involved early, but I would like to see the running game get involved right off the bat, 1 or 2 rushes right off the bat before going to the passing game, just to kind of almost make a statement, right? Like, okay, we're going to knock you in the mouth and we're going to run the football today and we're going to do it well. And I just think you need to do that right off the bat. And that's obviously going to open things up for the passing game. You talk about those big explosive plays and getting Tutu behind, the back ends. If you're running the ball more, you're going to see those guys cheat up. I mean, it's fundamental football, right? Skinny, like run the ball, the safeties eventually cheat up, and eventually you'll get the big play over the top. So if they know you're going to pass it every down, they're not going to cheat up. It's hard to do that. So That's my game plan. Run early and often, get the offensive line back to what they were doing early in the season, and then use the explosive play later in the game. Kind of like what we saw in week 1 against the Bears when Matthew Stafford's first game as a Ram. It was kind of like, was it slow-ish start? It's like, okay, when are we going to see him uncork it? And then that second half, it's like, oh, this is why they traded 2 first-round picks for this guy. There's that cannon arm, but they waited. They methodically got into it. Want to see that in this game, getting back on the right foot.
Yeah, we've been asking for them to get more physical, and this is a great game to kind of exercise that. And just kind of flipping it over to the other side of the ball, I want to see some takeaways. I think the defense now has two interceptions on the year, one of the lowest amounts in the NFL, and this is that's where we'll see a really dominant game is if they're able to take the ball away from this team. So I don't know. Do you have any other initial kind of defensive thoughts, or should we move to key matchups?
Yeah, I'm just double checking here. They're in just a turnover differential. The Rams are -2 overall, so would love to get that number back to even. And obviously that would get them no turnovers on the offensive side. We've seen Stafford make some of those kind of inopportune throws at times, and then obviously on defense, Akhello Witherspoon with that awesome pick in the end zone last week, or right just outside the end zone that saved the touchdown, but more of that, and then the physical play up front. So totally agree. I think getting in that turnover department, getting that differential back, to 0 or positive is what winning football is all about. They say the oldest coach's line in the book is basically you got to win the turnover margin every game, and that's how you're going to win football games. You lose a turnover margin, you're probably going to lose games. Well, add 30 plus carries to that, plus with a turnover margin, you're going to win a lot of football games. So, defensively, like we said, we don't need to be down on it. I don't see a ton of worry from the talent on that side of the ball. So let's just jump into you said individual matchups. Is that what you said, or score predictions?
Matchups or what have you, or things to watch, I guess.
Yeah. So give me a key matchup or an individual matchup, I guess, or whatever. Key to watch, whatever you want. It's up to you. What you're looking for.
We saw Jalen Hurts run all over the Rams team, and I think the Cardinals can make this a game if Josh Dobbs is running the ball and getting out of the pocket and picking up first downs. He's picked up 12 first downs on the ground. He's got, I think he's the team's second leading rusher. And we've seen it with Jalen Hurts specifically. We saw it with Anthony Richardson, where he was able to keep both of them were able to keep their teams in the game and keep the chains moving. So I'm going to put this one. I don't want to pick on Michael Hoyt, so I'm going to jump across. I'm going to say this one's on Byron Young. To chase down Josh Dobbs, keep those edges contained and not allow him to kind of shift this game.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, that's also, especially getting off the field on third down is so critical. And usually when those you see those QB runs, if they're not designed, a lot of them happen on scrambles on third down that extend the play, and they're back-breaking, soul-crushing, like think you're going to get out the field, and the guy escapes. So, yeah, that's a really good one. I like that a lot. Let's go. I'm going to go with off the top. I want to see special teams have a really good game. We haven't talked a lot about special teams because we haven't really need to. So I'm going to talk special teams. If you're on radio, we got to go to break here. So make sure to go to the Rams Skinny. You can find it at LAFBnetwork.com. Go to YouTube, Rams LAFB, or find us anywhere you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify. Just type in the Rams Skinny for the rest of this episode. So if you're on radio, appreciate you. Have a blessed weekend. Enjoy the game. We'll be back after the break with more LA football talk. So the offensive line, Skinny, special teams. Sorry, I got distracted there with the call sign. Special teams. Would love to see Brett Maher have a clean game. What do you know? What is off the top of your head his field goal miss and losses is right now?
I think he's only missed 2.
He's played much better than I was expecting when they signed him. I think the entire fan base gave a big oh man when they signed Brett Maher as their kicker. But I think he's played much better. Sticking with the Rams theme, better than expected, and he's done that. And most of his misses, if there's more than 2, have all been like 50-plus yarders. So I think just another clean game from him, because as the season progresses, this team is going to need to lean more on their kicking game to either pull away in games or in critical moments, whether that's at the half or at the end of games, because this is a football team that I think in every game is going to be one possession type situations. And so you got to have confidence in your kicker. Obviously the punting game has been actually tremendous. I mean, that was one of their best draft picks of this year. This guy is booming them. And then obviously they've been clean in the return game. No big breaks, but at least they've been clean. So not an exciting one, but hey, I just want to see a good, clean game from the kicking game. Brett Maher be 100%.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, it's the third facet, and we rarely talk about it. He's missed 4, two from between 40 and 49, and 2 from beyond 50. One of those was a block as well. I think during the San Francisco game, or maybe not, right. Maybe the Indy game. Anyway, former Cornhusker as well. Just throw that out there. I lived in Nebraska for a long time. I did not realize that.
I will say at least he is 10 for 10 on extra points. So hey, yes, happy there. Yeah. Which last year that was his kryptonite. Last year was the extra points. So we'll take the 100% on that.
Yeah, I think where am I going to go for another one? I had it in mind, and then we started talking kickers. And once you start talking kickers, we always get distracted. even though James Conner is going to be out, this isn't a great one either, just because it's hard to pick these out because, I just think this is going to be a dominant win, and I'm probably jinxing it. Amari DeMercado is his backup, and I don't know. I heard some praise about him, and that could be something interesting to watch in this game, I suppose, is what DeMercado will look like in James Conner's stead. I have James Conner on my fantasy team as well, so I gotta, like I said before, I got all sorts of roster management to take care of.
We're playing each other this week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
little Ram Skinny showdown this week. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, obviously, James Conner is a very, very good didn't he lead the league in touchdowns last year, if not mistaken? Or is definitely right up there. And so, that's a big hole to fill. But, we talk all the time about how this NFL is it's a next man up league, especially at the running back position, which is why a lot of these guys can't get paid, because this is where you seize your moment. This is an Austin Eckler type moment. Guy gets injured, you come in and really wow the world. So the Rams need to let that not happen. So I agree with you. That is a matchup to watch. I think kind of final one for me, and then we can give our score predictions and wrap this thing up. But, the one real vet on this team who obviously used to be one of the best in the entire league, but now is still capable, but just isn't as utilized as much, is tight end Zach Ertz. And so this is a guy that I think can go off, and the Rams, depending how they play it, if it's going to be a Jordan Fuller or a safety on him, or they're going to have Ernest Jones or a backer follow him around. When you look at this offense and, Rondale Moore and Marquise Brown. And they got some talented pieces. Nothing, as I've said many times already in this episode, nothing that I'm real too worried about. But Zach Ertz is a guy that can absolutely, be that game-changing tight end. And unfortunately, last week we saw Dallas Goedert really go off. I mean, he had been contained kind of all season. The former running mate with Zach Ertz, and then took Zach Ertz's spot and shipped Zach Ertz over to Arizona. Well, Zach Ertz is going to say, "Oh yeah, I just saw what my old buddy Dallas Goedert did against this defense. It's my turn to do it too." So I think that's one. We don't want to see Michael Hoyt running down the sideline with Zach Ertz. And so how is Raheem Morris going to scheme up the coverages that make sure Zach Ertz is always accounted for, and there's always having, the right personnel in when he's on the field? So that is probably the one matchup I am kind of like, not necessarily worried, but want to see Raheem Morris and how this defense reacts to kind of what they allowed last week, and make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and my final one that I just remembered was McVay against third down. I think last week's game could have been a lot more winnable if they were executing some of those, picking up some of those third downs, getting first downs there. And McVay just can't shoot himself in the foot, and the team has to execute. So, most of the problems from last week that led up to third and longs were actually problems on first and second down, which is where the running game can really help out. That's where I want to see a clean game is they're just efficiently and effectively picking up first downs, not getting behind the chains, not getting behind the 8 ball where they have to make a big play or they have to execute something, an 8-yard, 3rd and 8, something like that. And that's been something that's been plaguing the Rams off and on all season, is just an inability in those situations. So I'd love to see just a nice, clean, executed, well-called first and second down, sets up, 3rd and 2, or they pick up the first down on second down. So we could learn. I think we could learn a lot, watching that kind of football.
100%. Yeah, and it's funny you say that. I was in the Zoom press conference today with Lincoln Riley, coach of the USC, and that's been kind of SC's not problem this year. I mean, their offense has been dominant, but last week specifically against Arizona, ironically, the state of Arizona, they faced a lot of their third down percentage was much, much worse. And it was exactly what you're saying. They kept facing 3rd and long or 3rd and extra long because they were inefficient on first and second down. So hopefully Sean McVay, I know him and Lincoln Riley I don't know how close they are, but I know they do talk. I know they've said before that they're friends off the field in some capacity. So hopefully McVay kind of saw what happened with USC facing the University of Arizona. And now they're facing the Arizona Cardinals and say, you know what, I need to be efficient on those first and second downs. So we're facing 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 3s and not 3rd and 8 and 3rd and 9s, because that's how you really keep drives alive and you don't force yourself into these unwinnable situations. Not necessarily a matchup skinny, but the last thing we should talk about, or if you don't have anything to add, you don't have to, don't feel obligated. But if I guess it's a matchup, and it's Sean McVay versus second half of football games. Like, we got to see this team score points in the second half. They have struggled so much outside of the Seattle game in week 1 when they went off in the second half. It was like the opposite of what's been since then. This team has struggled in the second half for now basically 3 weeks in a row, certainly 2 weeks in a row with the Colts and Eagles. So that is something that we need to see when the game's off script after those first, couple possessions, how the offense and how McVay keeps things going. And if they start getting a few 3-and-outs, which we've seen this team that happen before, Skinny, is they stack a few 3-and-outs and it's like, then they can never get back on track. So how do they slow the game down again, take a breath, get back on track, start stacking yards and getting drives back going to put points on the board? And even if it's a couple field goals, talked about Brett Maher in a clean game, that's fine, because it's much better than the goose egg in the second half or 3 points in the second half total. So Sean McVay versus second half is kind of the final true matchup to see if this team's taken that next step. And everything they say in press conferences isn't just all talk, and it's actually being applied to, the game plan, especially the second half game plan. So got to see what this team does in the second half, because I have no qualms or fears about the first half. I think they'll come out fired up and play really well. But what's that second half going to look like? And are they going to let Arizona back in it, or are they going to pull away and play like they're capable of?
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, and I wish I knew. If there's a few people in this world that I want to crawl up into their head and just kind of explore, like what were you thinking here? And McVay is one of those guys where I'm so it's so unusual how he can be um, such a great play caller and head coach just across the board, and then it just falls apart sometimes. And
Yeah.
it like last year, it really showed exactly how far it could fall apart. There was, all these reports, specifically by Jordan Rodriguez. She kind of had a great piece after last season where she basically highlighted that he kind of pulled himself away from the team and pulled himself away from the other coaches just because he didn't feel like he had the answers. And, it's just amazing that he's so good at sometimes, and then all of his confidence falls away, or he's trying to pull the wrong strings at the wrong time, or something like that. And it's I'm always at a loss when that happens, because we've seen him be really fantastic. We've seen him be really fantastic for all 4 quarters of games, and I'm there's another one that happens where he kind of slows down and kind of the Rams lose that innovative edge as we move into November, late October, November, where he's always had that kind of slump. And it's just these weird pathologies where, he does the same thing every year. And it's just like, you could probably fix that if you,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I don't know how, I don't know what to tell the guy. If I did, I'd probably be making a lot more money.
I'm really curious, and I know they're close, but I'm curious the relationship between LaFleur and McVay, because in any business, especially when it comes to football, it's like you kind of, when you're a leader of an organization or a franchise, you kind of need someone that's willing to challenge you sometimes, especially if things, start regressing or repeat. Like if you're even in the business world and you're a CEO or an owner of a company, like you need someone that's willing to say, hey, we need to do this, and like push back and not just, bend over backwards to do whatever you say. And it's always felt like, and again, we're not in the org, we're not there, so this couldn't be incorrect. And I don't think by any means Sean McVay runs his team like a dictatorship or a totalitarian organization. I don't believe that. But it does seem like there's never really been that voice outside of maybe the very beginning of his coach when he had Wade Phillips as a DC. But there hasn't been that voice to really challenge him in a way and say, hey, like, we need to do this. I don't care what you're saying. Like, let's try this. Like, let's try this. Never really felt like that. There's been moments sometimes with Kevin O'Connell where it's like, okay, we see some things that are changing. There have been other moments, maybe even this year, where we like, okay, maybe this was why LaFleur was the right hire. Specifically, you look at like the Seattle game, but we haven't seen it consistently. And so, like in those moments, like against the Bengals, when the play calling was just really poor and the offense could not get out of their own way, or even last week in the second half, obviously just couldn't really get things going. Is it going to be LaFleur, or who's going to be that guy that goes to him and says, hey, we got to try something different? Like running these intermediate to long routes is just not working. Like we need to change up the game plan, change the script here. So I'm curious what the relationship's like, because sometimes it's really hard for friends to do that. When it's a good friend, when it's a really close family friend, or you have deep ties, like you're afraid of, I know I've struggled with that before. Like you're afraid of hurting the feelings of someone. Obviously, these are professional coaches and making millions of dollars, but just curious what that relationship is like, because you need that sometimes. And I think that's what makes you better, is when you have that person that pushes back every now and then and doesn't just blindly do whatever you want.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was beating the table when they were searching for the offensive coordinator, for somebody that had a lot more experience, maybe somebody that was older. I know Frank Reich's name was kind of floated out there. I think that would have been a really interesting relationship. And it seems like for a while, at least, it was working, whatever LaFleur was bringing to the table. And yeah, I mean, it's a great point, and I think that he just gets stuck in some of those tendencies that he loves, and I've stopped working, and that's That's a really hard thing to watch from our perspective and fans' perspective, just because this offense was the thing that was supposed to drive this team. It was the thing that was supposed to make this team better than okay and in games and winning games. And they've been in games, but they're 2-3. So they've lost more than they've won.
Yeah. And they've scored in 3 straight games, 16 points, 23 points, 14 points. So definitely hasn't been an offensive explosion by any means. And 2 of those games weren't against exactly strong defenses. I know the Bengals, are a good team and they just started slow and they're improving, but I wouldn't call them a dominant defense. Eagles, yes. Colts, no, not a dominant defense outside of maybe the front 4 or the front 7. So, got to see it in this one when you go against this Cardinals team that, just gave up 34 points to a Bengals team, which was their most point total of the entire season. So it's a defense that this team should be able to score against and should be able to get right on track and get back to 500 and get, keep stacking things for this team. So unless you have anything else to add, let's get to score predictions. Yeah.
Let's do it.
All righty. You start. Who you got in this one? It sounds like we're both taking the Rams as a win. Surprise, surprise. But what's your score here?
I've been wanting to see them score more than 30 points. So I'm going to say 31 to let's go with 18 is where I think this game's going to fall.
18. Okay. I like it. As I said, they gave up 34 to the Bengals last week, the Cardinals, that is. And, I think the Rams, obviously Jonathan Gannon's a really good defensive coach and has a lot of pride, and he's going to want to get that defense in a better spot. But I think the Rams and Sean McVay also have a lot of pride. And as I just alluded to, have not played very good offensively, especially in the second halves for now 3 weeks in a row. So I do think they call a good game. I think we'll see some fun wrinkles in there. You know what? I'm going to throw something out there. I think we're going to see play design, Skinny. I think we're going to see a Cooper Kupp throw, like basically a screen pass Cooper Kupp on the outside and either hitting a Puka Nacua or a Tutu on a 9 route down. I just think, didn't we see OBJ do that against the Cardinals in the playoffs? I think they bring it back against this Cardinals team back in SoFi, but it's Kupp to Nacua and just keeps that dynasty of them two growing ever stronger. So with that, I think they put up 35 points. I think the Cardinals would probably do a little late surge to make it interesting. But I don't think they get past 20. So I'll go 35-20. Rams win this one, and McVay pushes his record to 12-2 over the Cardinals.
And I think this is the first time the Rams have been favored heading into a game. They're 6.5 point favorites.
I think you're right. Yeah, 6.5. Big number. So,
yeah.
I think with that, when you looked at this first 6 games for this team, I think if anyone, you told them the Rams would be 3-3, I think they would have been happy with that when you look at the teams they had to play to start the season. So you win this one, you get back to 3-3. You're basically starting over. You're very much in the thick of things, and hopefully you get some things corrected that they weren't able to accomplish in the last couple of weeks. So with that, I am Ryan Dyrud for Skinny T. Thank you for tuning into the Rams Skinny here on the LA Football Network. Once again, please, please, please hit that like and subscribe button on the Rams LAFB YouTube channel. Head to LAFBnetwork.com for all of our Rams content. And we'll have plenty more stuff for this game in the next coming days. And we'll have plenty of coverage during and after the game on Sunday as well. Everyone, appreciate you for the support. Have a great weekend. Go Rams.